If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you. Hey man, how's it going?
It's going well. I had a week off last week and I learned a lot. It was good to hear y'all talk. I need to listen more often. So it's great.
Ash was great. He
was excellent.
He's super smart. I mean, has been in the industry forever, but has also done other stuff, right? And so
right.
It's great to add him to the cabinet. We definitely. I mean, I'm missing some people. Like I miss TK. I'm missing some of our old guard. But it's also fun to bring in some new faces and some new voices. And Ash is one I'm really grateful for. I am in a hotel room in Albany, New York, my home state, but definitely not my home city.
Albany's a long way from where you were born.
Yeah. Not that close to Brooklyn. But I did a talk today at Hani's, which is Healthcare Association or Hospital Association of New York State. Rick Pollock from the AHA was in a fireside chat right before I did my talk, and so that was really cool to hear him in person because he's retiring. And I thought his message was great. You know, he was talking about the need for solutions. He was kind of communicating that the general public is kind of over all of us as an industry. Like, you know, it's like they don't care about the hospitals versus the payers versus the pharma. Right. Like they really don't care that much, you know. Right. So he both spoke to the audience, but he also was like, hey, like we gotta make sure we get our positioning correct. So he set my talk up well for sure. Yeah, so look, we've got a stacked show. A lot has happened over the last week. You ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right, let's dig in. Okay, so Chairman Roche he's definitely not Jerome Powell, right? He's definitely not Jerome Powell. And I've heard his name discussed on a lot of finance podcasts over the last couple of weeks. And the general consensus that I am hearing from those podcasts is that, you know, he wants the Fed to be less of the center show and less of everyone waiting on every word that the Fed chairman says. That does feel different from Chairman Powell, for sure. He has talked about how he wants to take the Fed back to the days of Alan Greenspan, which I think is, you know, something worth reflecting on, given the recent passing of Alan Greenspan at the age of 100 this week. And he wants to stop focusing so much on CPI, and he wants to start looking at PCE. And so we start this week looking at PCE, the personal consumption. It has been gone up 4.1% over the last year. You know, if we're looking specifically at personal consumption expenditures and not sort of the blend that is CPI, I think 4.1% is not great, certainly not great. There is a core 12-month PCE inflation rate that is up 3.4%, and in recent months it's been climbing by 0.4%. So certainly not, you know, the 2 to 3% inflation rate that you would want to see, and I think certainly has to some degree something to do with the war and gas prices. Recently, there's probably been sort of a spike in the last 3 or 4 months. You know, what does it tell you that PCE is up 4.1% over the last year, Vic?
I think inflation in general, however you measure it, whether it's CPI or PCE, they both are up pretty dramatically over the last month or two. And the core question is, can we figure out a way to get out of the situation in Iran and get back to oil prices, you know, coming back to $60 a barrel or something, or not? I think I'm nervous about it. I think the memorandum of understanding and all that stuff seems like it's more show than real. And I think we might have some problems in the Middle East for a little while. I hope that's not right, but I think inflation is on the rise. So that's what it says to me.
Yeah,
I like the idea that the Fed will be less transparent, because the more transparent they are, the more they just seem like they don't know what they're doing. So I'd rather they be quiet about it and at least be mysterious. So
yeah, and also a little bit of acknowledging that we're in an era of fiscal dominance, right? I mean, you know, whether we're looking at the size of the debt service or we're looking at the impacts of war that the Fed has no say on, the Fed doesn't control that much. You know what I mean? So it's got to. I like the idea that the Fed is focused on a more narrow mandate and just trying to basically keep things in a certain range, and not trying to act like they are the full driver, because I think to some degree that positioning is what has made us all so upset with the Fed over the course of the last 5 years. Like this idea that if the Fed could do something to make things better, why haven't they? Right.
Mhm.
And I think Chairman Warsh is a little bit more like, we actually don't have that much power in the economy as it's set up today. And so let's stop acting like it. Let's stop making our FOMC meetings a parade, and let's just do our job. And I agree with you. I think that is a better positioning and a better posture, especially given the dynamics of the moment. Also, just talking about the war, you and I talked maybe 3 weeks ago about the reality that is now abundantly clear, that the United States simply just doesn't control whether or not this war ends, right? Like we don't even live in the region. It's
Right.
we're there because we're the United States, okay, and because we have relationships and because we have a certain role in the world, to ensure some level of functionality of the global economy and the Western way of life, right? Okay, understood.
The real thing I think we used to do is patrol the oceans so that trade could go freely around the globe,
That's right.
and we lost control of the Strait of Hormuz,
Yes.
and we can't get it back. I mean, I don't think we have the firepower or the willingness to lose the men and women that would have to go in, and we don't want to do that. And so, yes, it's not in our control, at least without the sacrifice that we don't want to make.
Yes, and also it's pretty clear we don't control Israel,
Yes,
right?
right.
So if we can't ensure that Israel is going to do what we say, then we can't stop it.
Yeah.
And I think at this point everyone kind of gets that, right? So not great, not great, not great. Let's dig into this next story that's talking about data centers. Another Wall Street Journal story headline: the data center boom is sparking a third wave of inflation. So data centers have totally taken over mainstream discussion, and I think for good reason. I continue to feel that there is not good, straightforward answers about what the impact of data centers are going to be as they are proposed to be built out. As I've said to you many, many times, when I first thought about data centers and this boom that was happening, I thought about the data centers I was used to seeing, which were buildings in an office park, not a data center that is the size of our nation's capital. All right. And so the minute you start talking about a data center that big, I'm not sure that I understand the percentages. When you talk about the water usage, I'm like, yeah, but the footprint is so ridiculous. Like, so what I've not really enjoyed is the dismissive tone with which, so many of the tech leaders have taken on podcasts, and these are podcasts I listen to that I like, but they're not acknowledging why people might be concerned, right, about the environmental hazards when the scale of these centers is so large. And this story, I think, does a good job of illustrating that very scale, right? So obviously we know that the cost of memory, and many of the components that are going to go into these data centers has inflated quite a bit. We know that. But there's two charts in this story. One shows capital spending at the five large hyperscalers, and you can see here in 2019, so 7 years ago, the total spend, and we're talking about Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Oracle, right? So the total spend between those five was less than $100 billion, okay, in terms of capital outlay. Here we are now in 2026, and the estimate is that we're going to be, north of 700 billion this year across all of the large hyperscalers. And the projection is that by 2029, we will exceed $1 trillion in capex spending, right? So that is a ridiculous increase in capex spending, and is part of what has been so challenging, I think, for Wall Street. Again, this is another one of those things that we've heard a lot about capex, but sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. And this graph, for anyone who's listening, it is up and to the right. It is hockey stick. The spend that's projected to happen over a 10-year period here. And then there's one other chart, and then Vic, I'll turn it over to you, that talks about spending on data center construction. And the number is not as impressive, but it is also a hockey stick. We are, quickly approaching $5 billion in annual spending on data center construction. And, that's up from in 2019, where we were spending 500 million. It's just such a rapid, and I think what's so crazy about this growth is not as a result of the internet, right? Like the internet has been around for a long time, and we've had sort of a baseline of CapEx spending and data centers. This is clearly tied to the rise of artificial intelligence. So with that, Vic, what are your thoughts on this?
There's no question the building is immense, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think the real error that those companies and others are making is they're not really telling a story that's beneficial to the general population, right? They say how incredible their tech is that they invented, so that's kind of self-serving, but there's incredible sort of scientific things, or I'm impressed with what it can do. But if you are not paying attention to the capabilities, or you don't use it every day, how does it affect you positively? And what, when Google came out and Google search was out, it was free. And yes, we gave our data, we had to see ads, but people, like my mother, everyone benefited because you could quickly get answers and it was obvious what the benefit was.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, there's so much talk of job loss and fears and AI, dystopia things, which certainly maybe need to be talked about, but there's no benefits really to the general population. And so if you are living in a city and you don't really see the benefits and you have this immense construction project, I think, of course, you would react badly. The example I'll give is, I think Vegas, it's in the desert. They use a ton of water, and I don't know, people enjoy Vegas, so they like to go, and then the water gets not as big a deal. And so if the data centers and the AI were providing value, I think the general population would be fine with it. They're not that bad. I mean, they are huge, and there's a little bit of noise pollution, but the real problem is there's no upside. So why do I want this? I'm not benefiting from it. I think that's the real issue, and that they just do not seem to want to put out an olive branch to do anything friendly. I mean, it's pretty simple to say, we're going to give everyone in Memphis free electricity. And then the people in Memphis might be okay with Colossus 3 or 4 or whatever. When you just say we're not going to ruin your city, that doesn't seem very attractive. So to me, that's the real, I don't know, kind of miss that I'm seeing.
I agree with everything you said, and I would go further, but we've got more stories, right? But I think I agree with everything you said, and I think that it does get to the point where you wonder if you can't put together a good story, is that because you don't have a good story for us, right? Is that because in fact we are going to lose jobs? Is that because in fact we are going to have environmental issues as a result of this? Is that because in fact this is going to take away purpose and we haven't figured out a way to replace that? And you hear whispers really across the group that signal yes. I mean, there are some people who are adamant. David Sachs would be sort of a key person, who are adamant that these things are not going to happen, or that there's no evidence that those things are going to happen. But they don't have a good narrative for what is going to happen. And all of this is happening while also in front of our face we have a net new trillionaire, right? While we have while inequality continues to grow, while the poverty rate continues to increase, right? So
either they don't have any good news or they don't care. I think it's more that they don't care, but they need to care. And they're spending $1 trillion on CapEx. I think you could give an olive branch of free power to some city, and it wouldn't even register on the chart. Maybe it's $1 billion to make the city of Memphis not have to spend electricity. Then there'd be every city in the country might be calling for you to put it here. But either they I think they just don't care. They're going to try to just run over people, but it's not going to work.
I mean, look, they were successful in terms of their political agenda and who they wanted to be elected, and they continue to be very aggressive on that front. They control media, generally speaking, right now.
Yeah.
And so I think they have a lot of reason to believe that it doesn't really matter. We're seeing signs that there is resistance. Everything that happened in New York recently with the primaries in the Democratic Party, and where Mamdani basically beat Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, we could talk about the lower candidates, but I think really it's about a new guard versus an old guard in that party.
Yeah.
And let's see whether or not that extends beyond New York. New York is its own thing, but for sure, I mean, we're seeing people around the globe that are, acknowledging what Mamdani is doing in the United States. And, I think the thing that's really interesting is it's populism, and it probably resonates more with the populism on the right than it does with the tech elite, with our new class of elites that are emanating from tech and capital. I think these midterms are going to be very interesting, right? I mean, there's a lot going on right now, but let's go to this next story. Tech stocks slump as the AI bubble fears loom. I mean, AI is just so disruptive, Vic. It's like first it was the SaaS apocalypse, right? Like AI is going to destroy all the SaaS business models, and now it's like, yeah, but what about all this CapEx spending? And does the AI even work? It's like, I can't tell that it's creating any value, but it sure is destroying a lot of value,
The history of technology rollouts, I think humans have almost never been sort of calm and step by step. We always get enthusiastic, the animal spirits go, and we create bubbles. Almost certainly we're creating a bubble right now. That doesn't mean there's not valuable things in there. There is, but we're going to create a bubble. That's how the system is. It's wired to sort of get people fired up, and then they chase, and it gets overextended from what it's actually bringing value to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's gotten to the point where I don't know about you, but I don't watch the stock market very often anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just focused on building companies. I think valuations have just been so absolutely crazy in 2026. I mean, everything from SpaceX to, we're going to talk later about Bitcoin, right? It's just, valuations are just insane, and it's really around uncertainty and momentum, right? Like, uncertainty is devaluing a great majority of things, and then momentum is hypervaluing many things, and it's also like it's almost like you just kind of want to be in the world of bits when it comes to investing. Like, show me the precious metals, because
right
it's really hard to understand things on the digital front. So Scott Bessent had an opinion published in the Wall Street Journal, and you wanted to include this. So tell me what this is about.
Scott Bessent is a much, at least for my taste, much better communicator than Trump. So this is an interesting story because he is kind of laying out the America First trade policy that Trump has implemented with tariffs, but framing it around a bunch of things that Alexander Hamilton said. And Scott Bessent is pretty smart. So, like, Hamilton is obviously very popular from the musical and all the things around that. And he just kind of laid out that Hamilton said a country is as successful as its own people can build for itself. So, like, you need to be able to make your own food, make your own manufactured good, make your own, manufacturing plants. We didn't have computers then. And so Scott Bessent is taking that and then saying America needs to bring manufacturing back on shore. We need to be making chips here. We need to do all the things that we know the Trump administration wants to do, but he's framed it in a more direct and kind of thoughtful way than, putting a tweet out with all caps.
Yeah, and I think that I think you're right. I think he is at times he's a good communicator. There was that whole gaffe around, like, your fifth home or something like that he said. That was a little bit on the tone deaf side, but I agree. I do think, when it comes to finance, economics, and business, he's an adept communicator, and Yeah, I mean, I think someone has got to put some level of rationale that people can understand and get behind, right? And I do think if this is a positioning statement, it's something that many people can get behind. I mean, I don't know who's going to say that it's not a good idea for a nation to be able to be self-sufficient, especially given some of the drawbacks that we've seen from globalism over the last couple of
Right.
decades. All right, moving to VC. So typically we talk about rounds, but I wanted to I won here just because I pushed Vic to include this story. This is not a story about a round per se. It's a story about a fund that it was a winner from this AI boom. So Menlo Ventures, I know one of the partners there, Greg Yap. So congrats to you guys. They just raised a $3 billion fund. This article from TechCrunch frames it as after betting the firm on Anthropic, Menlo Ventures raises a victorious $3 billion fund. And it says that their stake in Anthropic is worth about 14 billion, right? So many times more than the fund that they are raising right now. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up, the next story we're going to talk about is a round that Menlo led in an AI company in healthcare. Vic, you and I were talking 2 or 3 episodes ago about what was going to happen with this class of IPOs and how it was going to create liquidity for LPs and how that was going to recycle back into the fund ecosystem. And we also talked about the consolidation that is happening, right? There's a K-shaped economy everywhere, and there's also a K-shaped economy happening in venture capital. And we talked about how there was consolidation into a small number of funds. Really, I think there's 20 funds you can go down a list, and they are all raising increasingly larger and larger funds and getting an increasing percentage of institutional LP share. And to me, this is sort of the proof that is what is going to happen. Is that the spoils from this frontier model race are going to be distributed back to LPs. In this case, I don't even think it has been distributed yet, right? I think it's just in stake and book value. So the LPs who were in Menlo are really thrilled with their book value, and I think at the same time, it's like that's going to turn back into larger funds for them, right? And emerging managers, I looked at Jake Paul's fund here recently, and Jake Paul's is Jake Paul, right? I mean, he does deals with Netflix, so like I don't really think about Jake Paul as an emerging manager, but like technically he is an emerging fund manager technically. But when you look at his portfolio, it's like he has the access to be able to get into these deals. But the vast majority of emerging managers, like A, they can't, and B, their value proposition was that they will find deals that these blue chip firms won't look at, right? Like that was the general thesis, the whole rise of the rest kind of thing, right? That Steve Case was pushing, and it does feel to me like that narrative is in danger. It feels to me like we really are witnessing a mass consolidation in the venture capital space. And I don't know, man, this week I was looking on LinkedIn, and I just saw so many large healthcare tech rounds. I'm talking, 100 million or more rounds. This company's a unicorn, that company's a unicorn. But man, it was the same 20 or so firms that were leading these rounds. So I wanted to both say congratulations to Menlo Ventures. I mean, obviously this is a tremendous win, but also this is what I think we're going to be seeing more and more of.
I agree completely. There's no question we're going to see massive amounts of capital sent back to LPs and then recycled to the same 20 Silicon Valley, largely, a few in New York funds. And it's going to be even more. Those funds have incredibly large funds, and with those funds brings a lot of power and influence. I think that's going to happen. Obviously, I'm biased because our funds are quite small, but I wonder where the investment opportunities are going to be. So, I mean, there are capacity limitations for one partner to deploy X amount of dollars. I just think it's difficult to deploy $1 billion in really early stage things. And with AI now, I think the founders need less and less capital. So there's going to be something that changes there, but I don't know exactly what it is yet.
Okay, so let me agree with you, but let me also say what I am seeing out there and what
Yeah.
I'm experiencing. I am seeing that there are very few people that are personally staying on the frontier of AI. People are far slower to adopt and adapt their way of working to AI than I anticipated. And I think some of it is just because, life is full and it's busy. And to actually get good at AI, you do have to put the reps in. You got to be spending, I think you got to be spending an hour and a half a day, to really get good and advance from prompting to leveraging, Cowork or the equivalent on some other harness to getting into the terminal to starting to get agentic and starting to work on loops and all these different things, making sure you're using connectors, making sure you're using RAG, making sure you're using MCP servers, like all of that takes time, right? There's no way. And Vic, I just don't see that many people looking at this and saying, okay, we don't have capital available to us, but we have this incredible near free. I would call it near free if you're buying from Anthropic, and then free if you're using an open source, stack.
Yeah.
You could be using Klein and Hermes and OpenClaw and GLM 5.2, and like you could be using a fully open stack, and then it is literally free, right? And just doing incredible things, but it's just rare. There just aren't that many people doing it. I just don't see it. I just don't see the people doing it.
I agree that it's hard. We're both in the middle of it, and it even though I spend an hour a day, it is changing quickly. And so I went away for 4 days last weekend and was not really, watching YouTube and on X for all the new stuff. And
Yep.
bunch of things changed in 4 days. And at the same time, I sort of have confidence that founders and entrepreneurs will figure out a way to use these tools. Probably not this year, maybe late this year, but next year, the year after. I think there's gonna be a lot of power going to a small team of 2, 3, 4 that just don't need $100 million. I mean, I don't know what you would do with $100 million if you're not getting like distribution and really scaling, but just kind of starting. But obviously, I'm biased because I'm not trying to write $100 million checks.
Yeah, I think maybe what I would say is what you do with $100 million is you go to the CFOs of these, really big health systems, and you say, "Hey, I've got a balance sheet of $100 million. You can trust that you can work with me, right?" I think that's and hey, by the way, I'm willing to, you know, take on the risk. I'm willing to insure the risk of whatever thing I'm introducing to your organization. So I think those are pretty clear cut things that you could do in healthcare that are harder to do with just you know seed funding and so I'm just trying to be honest about it. I do think that there are huge opportunities. I'm not going to sort of fully disclose our investment thesis. I'm not here saying that there's not great opportunity out there, but I think we do have to recognize that this K-shape is happening everywhere, and venture capital is not exempt from that. I guess that's what I would say. And so with that, Menlo, they led a round in Assort Health. It was $120 million Series C to scale voice AI agent platforms for healthcare. One thing I will say is whenever I look at these like really large rounds, it's not necessarily companies I'm all that interested in. I guess maybe that says something about how your fund size is your strategy. It ends up shaping what type of things you're looking at and what types of things you're focused on. And I'm just never focused on something like.
So you don't like voice AI? I think it's a big opportunity.
No. I do think it's a big opportunity, but I don't think about it as what I would invest in. It feels like a big capital game, maybe is what I would say. And so it's not the kind of thing I would focus on for Jumpstart Nova. No. I would be focused on things where I think more subject matter expertise. Where it's more niche, but it is still ultimately in $1 billion TAM. I think about voice AI as being more like $1 trillion opportunity. It's great, but it's not, it's certainly not what I would be focused on, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, so at Jumpstart Foundry, we've taken 3 different shots at this in particular niches. But yeah, I mean, it is the overall market's huge. I agree with that.
Yeah, and the sort's going big, right? I mean, like that's why you're raising,
yes,
120 million. So Menlo led the round, also backed by Lightspeed, first round capital, Tau Ventures. So big names across the board there. Cadence rakes in 100 million to automate chronic care at scale. This is also a Series C. They've been in the market for a while. I think the first time I heard about them, they were doing work with LifePoint, our friends over at LifePoint. And so a Series C led by Spark Capital, 100 million. Strong, Thrive Capital, General Catalyst, Co2, B Capital, as well as 3 health systems, Corewell Health. So my friend Matt Cox, I'll have to ask him about this. Memorial Hermann, Mike Allen, I'll have to ask him about this, and Duke Health. These scaled rounds are rolling out, more regularly, and you're seeing these non-healthcare specific firms now, right? Leading these deals in the healthcare space.
Yeah, and this is almost exactly aligned with the whole MAHA thing, like working with chronic patients where you give them a device to take home and you're helping them daily with automated coaching and advice, and you see their wearable vitals and then can react. It's really kind of, they say it in the article, flipping the model where it's not like the patient comes to the doctor, the health system is coming to your home in an automated way.
And then looking into the biotech space, Ollin hauls in 330 million to enlist Vabysmo challenger in phase 3 eye disease gauntlet. So this is a Series B, and they have apparently toppled Genentech's eye medicine giant in an early trial. So, biotech it feels like it's back. I was talking last week with Ash about this, and it seems like now on a regular basis, we're going to see more and more biotech getting funded at scale. The round was spearheaded by TCGX and Arch Venture Partners, but A16Z was in, Blackstone was in, RA Capital Management, the Canada Pension Plan. So really, really, big funders behind this one.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I don't know the science, but I think it's good. It's good to see it progressing. I agree, biotech is back.
Yeah, diabetic macular edema is sort of the key focus that they're going after here. So best of luck to them, and congrats on the funding. All right, moving into policy, U.S. health spending spikes to $5.7 trillion in 2025, though growth should moderate, CMS finds. So one of the key drivers in that spike, GLP-1s. Not surprising, but also a real question now that we are greenlighting GLP-1s across Medicare. We've talked about how we think that there is likely some very, very good health economic modeling around investing up front for GLP-1s to be more broadly available to decrease long-term chronic care costs, especially at end of life that can get really, really expensive. But what do you think the signal around this is going to be, and how do you think this is going to play out as we move into the midterms?
The spending up to $5.7 trillion, to me, is the end of the headline. I mean, maybe growth will moderate, but it's already almost $6 trillion. And I question whether investing so it's also said 1 in 8 Americans are on a GLP-1, which is shocking to me. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked, but that's a lot of people. I'm not sure that the investment of capital right now to get people on GLP-1 is going to change the amount of cost in the last 24 months of life. I'm just not sure that I can connect those dots. I hope it can, but I'm not positive growth is going to moderate.
Yeah, I think it's going to move from 1 in 8 to 1 in 4 pretty quickly, especially as more and more indications roll out and can be reimbursed. And I think docs are getting more and more comfortable with prescribing it too, and seeing it as a very, very viable solution to everything that is parallel to obesity and addiction, quite frankly. So I think we're good. I think as pills ramp up, as different levels where, okay, you got to take it once a day, maybe take it once a week, start rolling out. I think we're gonna get to 1 in 4 here pretty quickly. So maybe more spending on the way. Democrats push for more data on Medicare AI Prior-Auth pilot. So they sent a letter to CMS and basically concerned about Wiser, which is the program around waste, that this new program is delaying care to Medicare beneficiaries. So we've talked about this, right? Like, yes, it is absolutely important to look at, fraud, waste, and abuse, and Wiser, which is wasteful and inappropriate service reduction model from CMS, is something we all should applaud on sort of face value. But waste, fraud and abuse are very, very clear. Waste and what's inappropriate, that is an entirely different discussion. I think there's going to be debates about what is in fact wasteful, and is what you say wasteful actually just delaying or denying care for a population that is already undercared for. So this is just going to be a tricky one to navigate. I think the fraud and abuse less so. Obviously, that too will be political, but less so at the end of the day, because I don't think any political party wants to be associated with fraud and abuse. But this issue of waste and what's appropriate versus what's inappropriate, I think there's going to be a lot of debate around this.
Yeah, and our healthcare system has for 60 years relied on sort of the payer and provider negotiation, and including the prior auth debate, getting to the right answer. That's sort of I don't know, adversarial. One side is pushing one way or the other, and then we get to, through that process, we get to a good result. We can change that, but I don't know what we're going to go to. And so no one's happy with how slow it is to get a prior auth done, but the payers have a function to play that if they are not doing that anymore, that 5.7 trillion is going to go up further, and we may not get better care. So there is sort of this, I don't know, like a check and balance thing that worked for a long time that is fraying now. But what I'm worried about is there's nothing next. And so if we take away those checks, I'm not sure how we control costs.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's something just so shocking about the spend going to north of 5 trillion, and HR1 also coming. It's like it's hard to. I mean, we study this stuff every week, right? And to some degree every day. And doesn't that kind of just boggle the mind that we're about to put all these cuts in place, but at the same time spend is growing, and we actually anticipate it's going to continue to grow because it's largely happening around the category of drugs. Like, isn't that just interesting to you?
I mean, the entire economy is 20 trillion, right? So we're looking at a little over a quarter of the whole economy, and it's growing much faster than any other segment. And it is not clear that we're getting the value. I mean, certainly other countries have healthier populations and spend less money. We have really very talented, great treatments. We have the best treatments in the world, but we also spend twice per person, maybe more than twice per person, to get the same health outcomes, really. So,
Yeah.
Yes, and I have to tell people, because I forget, 5 trillion is 5,000 billion. And that's just hard to get my head around. I can't really understand what 5,000 billion is. I'm not even sure I can picture a billion. But
yes,
it's a lot of money. That's
yes.
every year.
Yes. Florida launches a probe into CVS for alleged anti-competitive pharmacy practices. So this kind of continues the story that Ash and I were discussing last week around states starting to really, really go after these PBMs. Last week we were talking about Tennessee. This week it's Florida. I have to say, I don't fully understand what is underneath these red state strongholds. I mean, Tennessee and Florida, obviously two very, very strong red states.
Yeah, Arkansas was first. Arkansas was
pretty, I don't,
maybe they're purple. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what the political rationale is there, but there's clearly some continuity here around these red state strongholds going after the PBMs, which I don't know. I just wasn't what I expected. And to the discussion that Ash and I had last week, every area that the government decides to really focus on going after the healthcare industry, it's like the more that you understand it, you understand that a lot of the profitable areas, while there are people running them, not universally, but certainly in spots that are not the most conscientious, and that's not great. But a lot of them just end up paying for the unprofitable parts of the industry, right? And it's like I'm all for making sure that our PBMs are more transparent, 100%. But in the meantime, in many areas, CVS is it. I can think about spaces in Nashville where CVS is what people have access to. And if we knock out that PBM, what really happens from an access perspective, right? What really happens from an access to the prescription drugs that population is going to need? And so I don't know enough about the story to dig into it. I'm just thinking more sort of at the macro level, and it continues to feel like the pressure that is mounting, that is understandable given the amount of spend that we just talked about, coming after the healthcare industry, is just going to be challenging to continue to deliver care. And I think we're just going to see more and more closures that are going to make it harder for the people who need it most to get access. I struggle to see how that is not the outcome of all of this.
This is a good example. I think Florida and Tennessee, they're sort of doing what regulators do. Like CVS bought Caremark, probably like 98, 99, long time ago. And then they spent the early 2000s, and I think this is right. They were using transfer prices to really put pressure on independent pharmacies, and they drove them out of business. So there are very few independent pharmacies that are not parts of big chains. And the PBM process, they transferred price. They made the dispensing of drugs not profitable.
Not profitable, yeah.
And moved the profits to the PBM in order to shake out all the independent. And so that was not good for a lot of reasons. It's healthy to have independent pharmacists around. But now that all those independent pharmacists are gone, Florida and Tennessee and Arkansas are now deciding that they are going to come in and not allow a pharmacy to own a PBM. It's too late. Like, you should have done that in 98. And so I don't know. Like, it's a good idea. It's 25 years too late. And so now you shut down a pharmacy, and there's no one else to dispense drugs. There's no independence. So it doesn't make sense. I think it is a politically easy. PBMs are a pretty easy target.
Yes.
That is popular.
Yes.
And so I think that's more what's going on than blue or red. I think it's just like, we should go after these people. Healthcare is expensive. They're the bad guy. Let's go get them.
Yeah, PBMs are very obviously a middleman. Right.
Yes.
Okay. And to that point, we have a combination of two independent PBMs becoming a larger independent PBM that is going to serve 9 million members. And maybe this is the answer. So Abarca Health and LucyRx announced last week they're combining to build an independent pharmacy benefit manager serving commercial and government clients. Together, they'll serve more than 9 million members in the U.S. Abarca is actually based in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And LucyRx is based in Bethesda, Maryland. So maybe this is the answer, Vic, is
yeah.
We're just going to have a bunch of independents. And I don't hate that. I mean, that certainly creates a platform for more innovation. We have several portfolio companies that sell into TPAs, and if that's where we're going to head to, then that could be good.
Yeah. Well, and these two are pretty different. So them coming together, I think Abarca sells to health plans, and then Lucy is selling to employers. So there'll be benefits in bringing that together, I think. And I think as these states disallow a pharmacy chain like CVS from owning a PBM, I think CVS in Tennessee is going to not operate their PBM so they can keep their footprint of stores going. That's going to drive up prices, but it opens up an opportunity for a small group like Abarca to come in.
Yep, agree. Medicare Advantage's big decision. So this is a MedCity News opinion piece by several healthcare lawyers. I wanted to loop it in because I do think it's time for us, you and I, to start having a question about what exactly is the direction that Medicare Advantage is headed in, right? So I thought that this article did a good job of shaping up the last three administrations to include the one we're in right now. So they talk about Trump in the first administration had an approach for MA that was growth oriented, flexible, selective enforcement. The Biden administration heightened oversight and enforcement, stronger focus on equity and beneficiary protection, clearer expectations for plan behavior. And now Trump's second administration focused on reduced program friction with continued fraud scrutiny, value over scale expectations. And so what have we seen? We've seen on the fraud scrutiny, we've seen a lot of inquiries into payviders in particular, a lot of discussions around who is upcoding. So that's been a big focus. But I thought that this one around scale, it was particularly interesting because if we think about what direction MAHA is driving healthcare in this country to, it really is a value-based care direction, right? It's leverage more technology, but actually get the population healthier. Now, I'm not saying that CMS and HHS have set out a perfect rubric for how we're going to do that. But if we're looking at what is the spirit of what they're pushing the industry to do, I think that's the spirit of what they're pushing the industry to do. And so this opinion piece is asking the question: does this direction advantage smaller? It's kind of back to the point about these independent PBMs. Does it advantage smaller plans that can be more nimble in adapting to and also adopting AI, and also where they have a better handle on their populations, right? And understanding, yes, chronic disease is chronic disease, but it is different by demographic. It is different by geography. It is different by socioeconomics, right? Like that's just the reality. People, as you start to slice and dice people across those different matrices, the solutions are different, right? The messages and how you engage with them are different. The resources you're going to have access to provide them to them are going to be different. And so is that maybe what we are seeing is a setup where value-based care is best delivered by smaller, more focused plans?
To me, the Medicare Advantage was an attempt to bring more economic alignment, right? We're gonna capitate the rate for a subscriber based on their health situation. That makes pretty good sense because people that have a lot of chronic disease cost more. And so that was the goal. I think the real issue is, to me, is not scale. It's we only underwrite for a year at a time. And so there's not really a lot you can do with diabetes if you start in January and you have to get the payoff before December. Like you can get them healthy and they'll be marginally less expensive, but the real payoff is probably 4 years in the future if you can keep them from having complications. And we do that in life insurance, we do that in other insurance, but we don't allow it in healthcare insurance. And to me, that's the bigger fix than encouraging smaller scale, but it hasn't been, no one's willing to do it right now. But that was I think scale can be good or it can be bad based on how you structure it. I mean, they're talking in this article about faster decision making and being able to use technology more. I mean, that it's true that small companies can do that, but I think big companies can use technology and make decisions too. It really is just a lot of these chronic diseases. If you do everything right for a year, you're going to get some savings, but most of the savings is out in the future, and the patient is switching to a new plan every year. So
yeah, I do agree with the underwriting cycle being a real challenge to value-based care, and certainly Medicare Advantage, where we have these blitzes in advertising every single year. Right. But we do have a bunch of folks retreating and leaving markets, and so maybe by default that starts creating more multi-year underwriting cycles. So we'll see. Yeah. But I think thinking about what direction this administration is actually taking Medicare Advantage in is something I hadn't really thought about. I'd just been looking at what the impact to the payers has been, right? Scrutiny around
Right.
fraud and upcoding and these kinds of things. But I hadn't thought, like, where are they trying to take this thing, right? Um, and so yeah, it's an interesting
a
piece.
lot of the new programs are in keeping people healthy and getting data and getting the wearables and paying some kind of monthly fee to have providers or payers really work with their patients more closely. Medicare Advantage is not designed well for that, so it's a little bit off what Kennedy wants to do.
Shortage of chemotherapy drugs brings rationing fears. This is a scary story from the New York Times. If you look down in here, they talk about Premier, obviously a big group purchasing organization. They've only seen 38% of their orders for ifosfamide filled, and about 2/3 for the drug cisplatin, which is for ovarian, testicular, and bladder cancers. That's not great. Premier is a really important, huge GPO. I mean, I think they're in the top 3 GPOs in the country. And so if they're only seeing 38% of their orders being filled, that's a challenge. And, when you look at what's happening here, this seems to be a repeat of the story that we covered last year around basic generics for antibiotics, where we're losing the manufacturing because it's just not that profitable to make these things. And there's one thing when we're talking about antibiotics, but I don't know, something strikes me very, very wrong when we can't get sufficient chemotherapy drugs, and doctors at cancer centers are talking about literally rationing out who gets them. I mean, that is not what you want to hear about a cancer center.
Yeah, we need to pay more so that there's incentive to make these drugs. I think, I don't know how to go about that, but maybe it's an encouragement about, back to Scott Bessent's thing, we should be making them here. I know Mark Cuban is just starting to make one of them in Texas. It's going to take a while to get it ramped up, but it's possible to build a business, but it's not super profitable. So maybe there's some way to do that. I know there's been some hospital groups that have grouped together to create supplies. That was more around kind of post-COVID, all the supplies and things. But I don't know. We need to solve this problem, and unfortunately, I think government is going to have to get involved because right now the price point's not that good.
Yeah, and this article does a good job of sharing that this is actually a global issue. The issues happening in India, it's happening in Europe. Europe regulators said we may not get this straightened out until next year. So just something for people to be aware of, that there is rationing of chemotherapy drugs happening out there. I mean, just the supply chain issues continue. They continue. So we've been covering this, but Eli Lilly has gone forward with withholding some of their 340B discounts for those hospitals that refuse to submit their claims data. I think I understand it, but we have hospital groups. I was just at a hospital association meeting today, arguing that the company has no legal authority to create its own compliance requirements for federal programs. So we will see where this goes, but this is for me one of those unfortunate battles between different factions in the industry. I understand they all have to work together. They have their opinions about how all this stuff works. So certainly not something I'm going to get in the middle of, but something you don't love to see, right? You'd love to see all the parts of the industry be able to collaborate well, and this is unfortunate.
You and Ash covered it well last week, but the places where health systems could find decent amount of margin to pay for other areas that are loss leaders, 340B, supplemental payments, state directed payments, all of them are getting attacked right now. And I understand when you talk about any one, I understand how it makes sense. But when you take all of the funding sources away, there's going to be unforeseen consequences that have negative effects on the overall health of our population. But I agree Lilly has been very intentional. They gave health systems a couple quarters to get up to speed, and then they warned them a couple weeks ago. So they've been, they do a good job with, press and keeping out in front of the story. They've been doing this the right way, but it just hospitals have to find money somewhere.
One thing that that does continue to surprise me and does remind me that I am an outsider, and that I think people who don't work directly inside of the healthcare industry would, I think, be a little bit surprised about is just how much distrust occurs between like payers, providers, and pharma. I mean, it's truly an us versus them dynamic between these different players, and I just don't think it's the kind of thing that the general public really understands. But it is one of the most unfortunate aspects of the way that this industry is structured today, right? The adversarial nature that does occur there, and it's not universally adversarial. It's not that there's not partnership that does occur, but there's some broken trust there between all these different parties, and that's a challenge. That's a challenge.
All the original ideas made sense. But the original idea of using 340B to get discounts to poor populations so they could get their medications at a lower price, that makes a lot of sense. But then some health systems have been not passing on the full discount, and then there's a lot of hard feelings about that. That's what Lilly wants to see, and the health system is not willing to show it to them. And I think it's because they are making money on that.
So the $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund is pushing many hospitals to shrink. I mean, this is like, Captain Obvious story right here. Anyone who has looked at the HR1 math could clearly tell that this $50 billion fund was a political olive branch, right, to certain Republicans who were not going to vote for the bill over the concerns that it was going to gut Medicaid funding, and for their constituents that were in rural populations. So I think to some degree it was put in place to get the HR1 across the line. But I think also, under no circumstances is 50 billion going to make up for the cuts, right? So that's why it's positioned as a transformation program and a transformation fund. And of course, like, it's not going to keep these hospitals around. It's going to transform the way that care is delivered to rural America. That's the purpose of it, and it's not even going to all go to hospitals. So yes, we are going to see many, many rural hospitals close. There have been more than 100 rural hospital closings over the past decade, and more than 1/3 are at risk of closing, according to the Nonprofit Center for Healthcare Quality and Payment Reform. Any thoughts about this?
I mean, you summed it up well. I mean, I'll just later on in the story, they talk about the direct care spending, which really is either hospitals or providers. That's capped at 15% of the funds. And so they really are forcing them to buy technology, begin doing telehealth, maybe a workforce thing, new way to deliver care. I think, given the size of the fund versus the amount of the cuts, I think that makes sense. It is going to push rural health centers to think about doing something different, but it's not enough money for them to keep doing the same thing. So I think they have to do something different.
New drugs are replacing chemo for aggressive breast cancer. So we're into pharma, and this is a positive story here from AstraZeneca and Gilead. There's a class of drugs called ADCs, antibody drug conjugates, and there's a couple here from AstraZeneca and Gilead that are targeting some aggressive forms of breast cancer. Getting right to the source of it, and this is really exciting news that both of them are trending really well. Gilead's approval is resting on 2 trials, but those are looking very good. And AstraZeneca's drug Datraway is also in trial and has cut the risk by about 43% and extended the median survival by 5 months compared with chemo. So it's always exciting to see science advancing that is going to make specifically around cancer, because even with the methodologies and the therapies that we have today, many of them do fail with aggressive forms of cancer, and many of them impair the quality of life of the cancer patient even after a successful bout of treatment. And so continuing to see this advancement is great, and happy to see these advances for both AstraZeneca and Gilead.
Yeah, I agree completely. These ADC treatments are much better targeted, right? So instead of chemotherapy being given intravenously and sort of affecting the whole body, doesn't kill the person as fast as it kills the cancer, but it's pretty damaging to the person. these are much more targeted, where there's fewer side effects and it's still very effective. So, yeah, I think it's a great story.
Maybe not so happy. Pfizer's first new ADC from Seagen acquisition fails the phase 3 trial. So they hit a speed bump and they were going after lung cancer. And, was hoping for some good news here from Pfizer, but they announced that they stumbled on their phase 3 lung cancer study. So don't want to dig too much into that, but unfortunate news here for Pfizer.
Yeah, Pfizer's struggling, unfortunately.
AbbVie did a big acquisition, a $10.9 billion buyout of Apogee to grab their hotly tipped eczema product. So this pairs well with Skyrizi and Rinvoq, and sort of covers something that's going to challenge some of their rival commercial competitors out there in the space. This article highlights specifically Lilly, Regeneron, and Sanofi. So we continue to see big M&A activity, but this is a big number. Most of the things we cover are in the 1 to 2 billion range. 10.9 means this was a highly coveted deal and really important to AbbVie's defensibility around their portfolio.
Yeah, I have nothing to offer. It was exciting to see sort of more consolidation. I think we need more and more of this. So yeah, it's a much bigger deal than we've seen.
Okay, Health and Us. When diets don't work, parents turn to Wegovy for elementary school kids. And Vic, this is why I think we're going to get to 1 in 4 very quickly here. Doctors are looking for options, giving growing awareness of serious health risks tied to childhood obesity, which I agree with. This Wall Street Journal story has twins here that are lifting weights with their parents in their home, and obviously it's a media story, so they're taking pictures and they're covering all the things, but they also show that they are giving these young boys their weekly Wegovy injection. I think we're going to see more of this, Vic. I think that doctors have just come to the conclusion that these are safe, they're effective. GLP-1s have been around for 10 plus years, and it's increasing the number of things that they can provide very effective treatment for. And I just think we're gonna deploy them at scale. I really think so. We're gonna deploy them at scale.
Yeah, it's a sign. It's a new low from my point of view. I mean, I don't know. I do know one person. I know very few people that have gotten off the GLP-1 and kept the weight down. This is the kind of drug that you need to take kind of for a long time, maybe the rest of your life. So if you start at 6 years old, I just don't know that makes sense. But it can be, it definitely can help people lose weight. There's no question to lose weight. The question is, do you want to put a 6-year-old on this drug? I mean, I know it's good for the pharmaceutical makers, but I just think that's a long life. You have 80 years of taking it every week.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment because my children are young men, right? And neither of them were obese growing up, and so I never had to deal with it. So I don't think I'm in a position to make comment about it, but I will say that I am I'm pretty firmly in the court of this thing is going to hit scale. I just don't see any real friction to GLP-1s being mass distributed to America. We're going to fix this faster than we fix food. We're going to fix this faster than we fix inactivity. We're going to fix this faster than we fix screen addiction. This is the thing we can do. We can't do those other things. I don't see any movement on those other things. And so I don't know. I guess it's the best we can do,
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that it's going to go to 1 in 4 and then 1 in 2 and then 3 and 4. I'm just not sure it's long-term good, but I can't exactly say why. It just makes me nervous.
Yeah. I will say I share in that nervousness. I do share in that nervousness. Our only Web3 story is Bitcoin hit 58K. I've seen some miners calling for 44, which is like insane. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this. Part of it is AI. Part of it is quantum, which is accelerating as a result of AI. But part of it is Michael Saylor, and everything that's been happening at Strategy and the financial engineering around Stretch. I am not a naysayer for it at all, because I think you really need to know what you're talking about to make real commentary on Stretch and what they're doing with these, Bitcoin backed, credit products. It is the kind of thing where you have to be a little more perfect on the rollout than strategy has been. I think that's the thing I would say. And I'm hearing many in the crypto industry. I listen to the Blockworks podcast quite a bit, and these are very, very, very knowledgeable people about all things tokens, crypto, etc. And they sounded pretty worried. So for me, I will just say it might be an incredible opportunity for young people out there who maybe felt like they missed Bitcoin when it was dancing in the 100K plus range. If it gets back down to 44K, that could be incredible for them. But yeah, it seems like this is an abnormal drop for Bitcoin, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, and I think volatility is a feature. Right? Like I like that it's going down. I'm a guy that's just doing a weekly buy, whether it's good week or bad week. I'm buying the same $250 every week. So, and I do that because I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch this. I think in the next 10 years, I think Bitcoin will be higher than it is now, but that could be wrong. And at 250, I'm not that worried about it. So in that case, the volatility helps me. And if it goes lower, it'll be fine. But if you're watching it, and if anyone is putting debt on it or buying with leverage, that is going to really hurt people.
Yes.
So,
yes, you were doing it the way that I think the OG Bitcoiners would say is the right way to do it. Right? You're just.
It's also just the way that's functional.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to watch this daily and try to trade around it, and that's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yep. Agree with that. Okay. Time for the AI rundown. Anthropic claims Alibaba ran a brazen campaign to access its Claude AI model. So this is just. I am getting more and more worried, and I was the very person who said there's no way you can legislate open source software, but I really am starting to get worried about the future of us being able to use open source models, because I think they're so important. I think open source models are so important. The next story is coming from Lenny's newsletter, talking about GLM 5.2 and how, okay, maybe it's not Mythos class, but goodness gracious, the benchmarks are like out of this world and it's free. Like
right.
you can run it on your own hardware. I mean, it's unbelievable what these free models can do, right? But look, it's like you have to look at the track record of China and Chinese companies where they have their own internet. They have their own internet, they have their own laws, and they've been able to get away with these things forever, and it's just part of their operating model. And I think I would have to trust that Anthropic is telling the truth here, that in fact Alibaba did, create a bunch of accounts to siphon off and distill their models.
There's no question in my mind that they did that. The extent is unknown, but they definitely have done it. But the question is, why do I care? I mean, I think Anthropic and OpenAI probably are trying to get whatever advantage they can get off each other. It's a very competitive space. And I think this is just part of being the leaders. People are going to try to, distilling means they're asking the model and then using the answers to train their own model. And I think Anthropic could limit the number of accounts that get set up if they wanted to. They wanted to get like everyone using Claude. So I don't know. I think it happened, but I don't have a lot of sympathy for Anthropic. I think that's just the competitive landscape.
Yeah. Oh, no. I have no. Look, all these models are built on all of our intellectual property anyway.
Right. Yeah. They're all stealing from each other.
Yeah. They distilled off of the collective knowledge of humanity from the internet. Right. They bought a bunch of books and scanned them and then burned them. Right. So, I mean,
right.
Look, I'm not worried about Anthropic. I'm worried about these open models. I'm worried about Anthropic's PR engine creating political animus towards these Chinese AI models, such that we start getting some ridiculous regulatory ideas around them.
Yes.
That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about.
Yes. That I agree with that completely. The open models have to exist. They keep everyone honest. They keep the closed systems having to keep getting better and better in order to charge. It's good for everyone. Even if you don't use an open source, it's much better to have it out there where the competitive dynamic is intense. And Anthropic crying to the Wall Street Journal about this brazen campaign is not something I care about. But they do have a good PR campaign, and they're spending a ton of money on lobbying. And they are saying directly we should stop developing, in parentheses, because we have the best model. And I think we need to try to hold that back and not overregulate early on. One of the few things I agree with David Sachs is that no government official has any idea how to regulate these markets.
No.
And so they should stay out of it because they're going to do the wrong way to regulate it. They just don't. No one knows.
No, I mean, back to our conversation about very few people are using this thing enough
Right.
to understand it, right? I mean, no, I'm with you on that. Okay, so this post on Lenny's newsletter, we'll put it in the show notes. I mean, it's just a video here from Clairvaux, who's a well-known product leader. I just think people need to better understand the class of open models that are out there, and GLM 5.2 took over X this last week as it was released, right? I mean, it's getting to the point where these open model stories don't get the kind of headlines that DeepSeek did, right? When I went to look for GLM 5.2, I only found it on Substacks and X, right? And Hacker News, like no mainstream media was talking about it. And I think that's exactly why I want us to start including it a little bit more. Because yes, there's Anthropic, and yes, there's OpenAI and Gemini, and sure, yes. But there are a class of open models out there that if you can figure out how to host them, or you can buy them from a host provider. You can buy them from Venice. You can buy them from Ollama. Like, you don't even have to figure out how to do it yourself. Yeah.
Right.
But there are alternatives, and they're very powerful, and they're very, very good. So
yes. And unless you are, for the work that I do, I haven't tried GLM 5.2, but I've tried several other models. It's great. Like, I'm not typically doing like cutting edge, PhD level biotech research. I'm trying to write an email or put together a valuation summary for an asset. And I don't need the power of Mythos for that. I do want to have access. So I think one of the things that we're going to start talking about in the next 6 months is, the model routing, and like based on what you're doing, can you automate it where it goes to a frontier model that's expensive if you're doing something that takes a lot of thinking, a strategy, and then a free model if it's more of a run-of-the-mill kind of a write me an email draft.
Mm-hmm. Yes. OpenAI and Broadcom are developing a custom chip for AI inference. So, look, the model companies are understanding they need to go more vertical. And I think what's really cool is it creates opportunities for some of these like not so exciting chip companies to get in the game, right? Everything is not about GPUs, right? And I think this is really cool.
Yes, definitely. And when NVIDIA bought Grok, they were going to run the table. So it's good to have someone else that can do inference. It's early, but.
And we're going to end with this DirectX post from Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft. Everyone has been talking about the perceived blunders that Microsoft has made in their focus in the frontier. They initially were the lead dog, having made their very strategic early investment into OpenAI when OpenAI was the only player that was out there. But since then, Copilot has stumbled. Their relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI has fractured pretty significantly, I would say. And Microsoft does not appear to really have a frontier model of their own. They certainly have the cloud, Azure, and they have a very, very strong business and a lot of cash flow, a really strong balance sheet, but they don't have a frontier model, really. And so this post from Satya Nadella is kind of like his strategic positioning around that situation. And I think it resonates with a lot of people, right? Which is to say, these frontier models cannot eat everything. and context and change management, and we need to are really important, and we need to focus on the ongoing value of intellectual property. Like, we can't allow intellectual property to just fade away as a cornerstone of the economy. And human capital is very important. And so all of a sudden, he's taking this position that is more like, hey, we need to protect the economy that we've so rigorously built over certainly the last 100 years, but definitely since the internet era has emerged. America's companies have really dominated this internet era, and we need to not allow these AI companies to totally destroy it without even properly returning an increase in value creation and productivity. So that's how I would position his post. What did you take from it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I think I agree with him that the frontier models are not enough. So that is absolutely right. It's really about how do we structure how work gets done now with these new tools, right? So when Excel came out from Microsoft, it took a few years for finance departments and other departments to use this new tool in different ways to really take advantage of it. And we're going to go through the same process. It takes humans a longer time to change their behavior and learn new things and interact together and create the incentive structures and reviews to encourage people. He's right about that. I think you started the segment off well. It's kind of his corporate positioning. If he had won and had a great frontier model, I don't think he makes this post.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's right, and I also think that having a great frontier model is not, to me, appearing to be incredibly defensible in and of itself, right?
Yes.
Per the last discussion that we just had about GLM 5.2, right? And so I think it is time to focus on the increased value of the ecosystem for those of us that are in businesses trying to turn our businesses AI native and listening to the Nate B. Joneses of the world. And, we know this to be true, right? Like, you have to restructure your organization as a layer of context. And it has to have an ecosystem of tools that you standardize on, right? Like, for us, it's Asana and HubSpot, right? Are kind of our core two tools that we standardize on. And then I say Google Drive as well, Google Workspace, right? Without that ecosystem, how valuable would Claude be? And that's a real question, right? And I can say, I don't think very. I don't think our firm could run very well, because the reality is, every time I ask Claude to do something, my default posture has to be scrutinize the end product, because I can't trust it. I know there's something wrong with it. I know there's always something wrong with it. 100% of the time there's something wrong with it. It's never perfect. And our ecosystem of context gets it closer to perfect. Our tools create structure and rigidity that stop it from doing things it shouldn't do, right? And I think that's a very strong point. That's a very strong point.
The LM seems so human-like that a lot of people forget that every time you turn on a new session, they have no memory of anything. It is brand new. And so they have to have structure around them so that they wake up and then proceed along the course that actually produces work that's valuable. And then you're right, it's a distribution. So they're often right or in the right direction, but it's stochastic, it's random. So there's going to be times when it is not in the middle of the bell curve and it's way over here, and you have to have reviews and checkpoints and evaluations so you catch that and don't just pass it through as if it was perfect every time. It's not.
Yeah, no. Listen, I mean, we have our pipeline that collects a bunch of information and stubs out an outline of an investment memo, right? And so I was looking at the draft of that outline, and then we have to go in and we have to fill in our rationale, right? And I was looking at the stub of it, and one of the facts that it was supposed to have gathered, like, was completely made up. And I said, and I said, where did you get this from? And of course, what did it say? I have to be honest. I have to be honest. That didn't come from any, source material. And that's the thing. It's like, by default, you can use these tools for accelerants. You should use these tools for accelerants, right? There's no way you're going to be as productive without them as you will be with them. But you cannot trust the output. You cannot. You have to validate and almost certainly edit the output, right? And now can you programmatically do that through deterministic evaluation harnesses? Yes. You can program that sort of QA threshold. You can, but you can't just allow the output of the LLM to be the final output. You can't.
As I've gotten more involved in this, you have to create either programmatic, deterministic checkpoints or like an adversarial reviewer or judge worker, so you have tools, because these tools are powerful. And if I have to review every investment memo that it does, I'm not going to have enough time in the day to do that, because it can go very fast. And so that's what I mean by like the human way we do work has to be rethought with these new tools. And that's a lot slower than inventing the new frontier model. And so that thing that Satya Nadella is saying, I totally agree with. But I think it's, the timing is interesting.
Yeah. All right, man. That was a chunky show, but we got through it. So thanks for hanging in there, and thanks for listening. And I'll be back next week. Vic, you going to be here next week?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you then.